Dumelon.
Oh, dat van de Westhuizen. Le guy.
Regona legal.
We have interviewed you in the past. Am I mistaken?
No, you have. It was last October.
Can you just say any additional thing or give any perspective that you believe we need to hear for the purpose of this interview before I give anybody the opportunity to put questions to you?
Yes. My response to the language issue at the previous interview was inconsiderate and thoughtless.
Maybe you should start by reminding us what your response was.
My response was that it was a very curt response in the sense that I said, I'm a lawyer and not a linguist. That was inconsiderate, thoughtless, and if it came across as arrogant or dismissive, I apologize sincerely. It was never so intended. I am learning Sepedi. I've taken a note and I'm learning Sepedi. It is an exciting and informative exercise. A new culture has opened to me, which I wish I had been able to experience that previously. It's not easy learning a new language, but as somebody once said, everything is possible. Impossible takes a little bit longer. It's a steep learning curve, and I'm enjoying it.
Well, maybe before my colleagues put questions to you, what informed that answer? What is it about you that allowed you to answer like that? Did you not yet have an appreciation of?
I think it was mere ignorance as to what one can experience and one can learn from, because language is part and parcel of culture. And I'm learning much about a new culture which I didn't know much about.
Yes.
And that saddens me.
Thank you. JP?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Advocate van der Westhuizen, since we last interviewed you, you've now chalked up 65 weeks.
That's
6
correct.
of them in the agent court, is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. Most of your agent courts have been in Pretoria or Joburg?
Pretoria, I had one in Johannesburg.
Okay. And you've also done a stint in the tax court?
Yes. That
Right.
was a new experience and I enjoyed it too.
Yeah, and you've done 3 weeks in the third court?
Yes.
Your specialty in practice, what was it? Just remind us.
Intellectual property.
You an intellectual property lawyer. Okay, and I see you've done 18 weeks in the unopposed court.
Yes.
Okay, and you, based on the answer you've given now about the previous interview, it's what informed you to come back and still raise your hand to be considered to be appointed.
Yes.
Yeah, and in terms of being suitable, you have no problems with that. You are suitable. You've got the experience and you can do the work.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Judge President. MEC? There. Commissioner Sobe.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Mr. van der Westhuizen, looking down upon other people's culture or language could well be perceived or seen as a form of racism, not so?
It could be, but not in my case. Mine was mere being naive
Yes.
and It's
Now,
never
please,
intended to be.
I accept your explanation, but I'm just talking in general
Yes,
terms.
it can be.
Right. Now, that leads me to my last question. There is racism in the profession, and I think most people who are interviewed here today agreed to that, except a few individuals. Do you accept that there is racism in the profession? And were you to be recommended for appointment today, would you assist the leadership of the judiciary and your colleagues in general to address the evil of racism, particularly directed at black women on the bench and in the profession? Thank you.
Yes, I agree that, and I wholeheartedly am willing and able to assist in eradicating that.
Thank you, JP. Commissioner Malema?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Are you learning Spedi so that we can appoint you here,
No.
or you genuinely believe that it's the right thing to do?
The second part, it's the right thing to do. I should have done it earlier.
And you appreciate that the questions we asked you here, and we continue to ask other people, they helped conscientize them and appreciate that other cultures are more important also.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Van Westhuizen. You're excused. No other person is interested to put. Oh, Commissioner Mbovu.
Out of sympathy. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Acting Judge or Senior Counsel. Yes, no, I just wanted to share. I appeared before you in a very complex matter involving the social grants and all that. And I want to ask you about judgment writing. Because what impressed me, apart from the fact that I was on the winning side, of course, what impressed me was the fact that in such a very complex matter indeed, but your judgment was not long. It was maybe 15, 20 pages. But it literally captured the essence of what the issues were. I mean, some of us had put heads of argument of 50 pages and piles and so on, because it was quite a difficult issue. How have you found the experience of judgment writing, number one, and during your acting stints? And what do you think that acting judges in particular need some kind of special training in judgment writing? In relation to the quality of the judgments, but also in relation to the perennial problem of length of time it takes to dish out the judgment.
Yes. In particular, I think to my advantage is that I approach it analytically, and I have a lot of experience in writing opinions, and people don't like long opinions, so that assisted me. So if you do not have that background, I would agree that, and even for my sake, I would appreciate having some guidance in writing judgments.
Used to be judgments for about half a page. Ines would just write a judgment like that. What do you think needs to be done to cut down on these long judgments that even university students don't know where to begin reading and sometimes just look for the summary? What should be done?
There are a number of things. For acting judges, I think there should be some assistance when they are there the first time, that they get some guidance in writing judgments. I think what really irked me when I was a student is reading the old judgments of Sir de Villiers, who was the Chief Justice in the Cape. He just carried on and on for pages, and it was difficult to get to the nub of things. which then I think put me on the course to try and be as brief as possible. But it is really something that experienced judges should be able to assist. And it may even start at university. Let them have a writing skill course to draft opinions or to write a judgment. Get a set of facts, and they are to write a judgment within a certain time period, within a certain length.
Well, on a lighter note, when you made reference to a Chief Justice, I thought you were going to say maybe the doorstoppers that the Constitutional Court judges write must come to an end. Commissioner Didiza?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I just want to check from you whether you think there is any possibility of protecting indigenous knowledge. If you were to reflect, I'm sure you might have followed it, the case of Rooibos
Yes.
and the American pharmaceutical company. I know that the Department of Science and Technology have finally drafted a bill which has been passed by the committee on indigenous knowledge system, but I'm not sure whether that would be adequate enough to address the issue of intellectual property. So I just want to hear your view as to whether is it possible to protect indigenous knowledge.
It's a fine line, but it should be protected, especially with the continent Africa, where there is so much knowledge in that regard, and that should be protected in some way or the other. The answer, how to do that, is not something that I can do offhand. It's a process that one will have to follow.
Just a follow-up, I used the Rooibos case as an example, and I'm not sure whether you heard about it, where a pharmaceutical company actually developed out of the knowledge that they were given by the local citizens about the properties of the Rooibos and what it has done, particularly for the Khoi and San community. And thereafter, when products were developed, there was never even acknowledgement, no royalties that went back to that community. And the case dragged and dragged. So it was in that context that I'm asking as to, is it possible? Hoodia is part of that another matter, like Rooibos.
It would be possible, and it should be possible, but to give a final answer to that, I'm a candidate at this stage to judicial appointment, and I may have to decide that very issue, and then I have been committed and compromised in my views.
Thank you, Advocate van Westhuizen. You are excused.
Ke a lebogo.
Zamazindle.
Maar may I repeat my previous question? May I have the sweetie?
Grab as much as you want to.